Well, welcome to Experts at EWU. Now, we had an opportunity 4 or 5 months ago,
I believe so,
to be out at Eastern and to talk to a couple people. And we've been doing this series. And there was one gentleman that we got to interview in his office and honestly had a chance to watch him teach before his students and answer their questions and raise questions with his students, which I think is important these days.
Yes, really so.
And I've been waiting for him to come back and to be on our show in our studio. So Scott Finnie, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
I tell you, I watched you and I'm going, I wish I had the same enthusiasm back in college that I have now. Just watch, and I think we watched you maybe 8 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long.
Yeah.
And then we talked later.
Yeah.
And then I said, I want you on one of these times. And then everything in the world changed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, completely.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's something called COVID-19 and
Yeah.
the shutdown, and
Yeah.
it's affected Eastern.
Yeah.
It's affected what we did. We went to totally remote and all of that.
Wow.
Back in the studio. We still have some people that come in remote. I'm glad you had guts enough to come in
that's right.
and sit across from me.
That's
Okay.
right. I'm breaking the barrier.
I know, I know. You're not going to get in trouble for that, are you?
I know. I hope not. Hope
Okay,
not.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was absolutely fascinated with what you were saying and,
thank you.
and what you did with your students and so forth. And I'm going, all right, you know, we on the outside can sometimes complain about education, K through 12, higher education, you name it. But I was renewed with the faith that good things are happening when I
Great.
just saw that 8 or 10 minutes with you.
Thank you.
I
Thank
didn't
you
get
for
to
that
see anyone
feedback.
else,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they're probably close to being as good as you,
Well,
right?
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You do a lot out at Eastern,
Yeah.
okay, and you head up the Africana Studies program
Yeah.
that you direct. And I remember you're listing all of the things that you do. But before we get into that, let's also talk about your background, because you mentioned where you came from and some of the
Yes.
people that you knew and your family knew
Yeah.
and all of that.
You bet.
And that gives a whole different perspective, and I was fascinated by that.
Wow.
So let's go back, start with a little history.
Sure. You bet. You bet. I grew up in the Bay Area
Yes.
during that great decade known as the 1960s.
Yes.
So I was right there.
But you're not as old as I am.
No, apparently not.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what our birth certificates say. You
Okay.
never know. You never know. No, I'm a baby boomer toward the late end of it, but I'm still a baby boomer.
I'm first-year baby boomer.
Oh, first year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't have guessed that. That's great.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
pay you later.
You bet. But growing up in the Bay Area
Yes.
was something in
Yes.
the 60s.
Yes, it was.
You had the clearly the civil rights movement that exploded there.
Yes.
With the free speech movement and eventually the nonviolent approach that Dr. King brought in. And of course you had the anti-war thing going on. And
Yes.
Very, very strong. And then you had the counterculture, the
Yes.
hippies in San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury.
Right.
And then the women's lib movement came on as well, and before you know it, it was a social revolution.
It really was.
And capsulized right there in Oakland.
Right.
And so I grew up the youngest of 7.
Okay.
We had 6 boys and 1 girl, and my oldest brother was actually in the college campus cafeteria when Huey Newton, who is our cousin, and Bobby Seale founded the Black Panthers.
Oh my gosh.
In 1966.
I knew there was that connection. I had forgotten that.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah. So our cousin actually, who was a law student at the time, and who was driven, but like we all were, what's the best way towards social justice?
Okay.
I mean, this was the tune, this was the anthem within our hearts. And so the Black Panthers was a kind of an approach to deal with the police brutality.
Right.
But not only that, but it was also with its 10-point program to increase the quality in the neighborhoods with library registration drives, food for shut-ins. There was
That weren't getting the attention.
and it
that-
wasn't getting the
right,
attention
right.
because they did have an aggressive approach to confronting police. Police brutality was a big problem.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in Oakland. And so rather than let it happen, the Black Panthers took it upon themselves to make sure that the codes of the law within city limits of Oakland were pronounced as they saw someone being confronted by the police.
Right.
And then at the same time, back then in California, it was legal to have your ammunition and your guns out on your person.
Okay.
So they came armed.
Yes.
They actually carried out an armed patrol and a surveillance.
Okay.
To educate the setting that was going on during an arrest, and to even tell the police, if you need to go so far, we can be here for a little man-to-man action, bullet to bullet, if you like. But it wasn't something they attacked, but they just said,
We're here.
We're here.
Yes, okay.
And that left quite an impression on us.
Yeah.
And actually, the arrest rate and the brutality rate went way down for
Okay.
5 years until somebody named J. Edgar Hoover in the FBI did some other
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
But that's a whole nother story at another
Yes,
time. But we
yes.
saw here was an effort not to destroy things, but to bring things back to alignment of fairness.
And put a clear spotlight on
Yep,
it.
that's really what it was.
Yeah.
It really was, yeah. And I would say it provoked a lot of discussion, because at the same time you had Dr. King saying never use guns, never impose,
Yes.
never be, intimidating. So we had this debate going on in my household. My oldest brother was, he was even in the Black Muslims. He
Okay.
went and heard Malcolm X speak. He was, of course, drawn by the Black Panthers. My second oldest brother was, hey, let's make love, not war. It was in San Francisco. He moved to San Francisco and got into the Haight-Ashbury whole scene. And he thought, hey, counterculture's the way to go.
Okay.
And the Beatles and everybody else had a lot of, songs to confirm
Yes,
that.
I've heard that.
You've heard a little bit about that, yeah. And then my third oldest brother was involved with Berkeley unrest regarding student activists.
Okay.
And so the debate about social justice was
And
always
how
something.
old were you during a lot
Yeah,
of
during
this?
that time, I was 9, 10, 11, and 12,
Okay. Yeah.
I was 11 years old on April 4th, 1968, when Dr. King was assassinated.
Okay.
And we saw Oakland erupt
Yes.
into a race riot immediately. And 125 other cities across the country also did the same
Yes.
that same night. So there was this drive. What about waiting, using nonviolence, or what about some instant change by using apparently the language of the powers, and that power is to understand violence. So there was this debate going on. We knew deep down inside violence is not the way.
Right.
But there was a kind of tiredness.
But sometimes you have to make a statement.
You got to make a statement.
Yeah.
You got to make a
Right
statement.
or wrong.
Yep,
Okay,
exactly.
right.
Yeah. And really, when you think about Dr. King, his nonviolent approach is really to do the same that the violence somewhat planned to do, was to awaken the conscience,
Yes.
was to increase awareness. Because protest is of course, a part of an amendment in our Constitution.
Yes.
But it's to stir up the consciousness, the awareness, and even the conscience of others
Yeah.
to something that's unjust and unjust continuously. So I would say we saw a lot of options, and
I can
was
only
driven.
imagine the conversations going on in
Yes.
your household.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
really something. It was really amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. But when you consider 225 years of slavery,
Yes.
and then actually from 1619, when the first Africans came here, not as slaves, but as indentured servants, from 1619, they experienced a kind of an unofficial quarantine. And you could say Jim Crow segregation started right when they came
Okay.
here to Jamestown, Virginia. And it went all the way to 1964 with the Civil Rights Act. At least on paper, finally, this American apartheid was outlawed.
Yeah.
So 345 years of that, 225 years of slavery, we've got a long ways to go
Yeah.
to turn the ship.
Yeah.
You know.
I have a friend who grew up and literally climbed the mountains out of Iran into
Wow.
Turkey, okay,
Wow.
for freedom, okay?
Wow.
And he will sit down with me and has said this several times. I come from a country that has thousands of years of history,
Wow.
okay?
Wow.
And things have changed, not all good, of
Mm-hmm.
course. He says, we, because he's a citizen now, we have a very short history. We have a long way to go.
Yep.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we're doing a lot of things right. Some things have to be corrected and so forth. But that kind of gave to me the perspective of we really, I forget, okay, that we really are a young nation.
We really
when
are.
you think about it.
We really
you know,
are.
that democracy experiment that we're still experimenting with, and we still have to write it.
Yep,
Right
exactly.
the ship a bit. Okay?
Exactly, yeah. And we're the only nation that dares to do this one thing, what historians call the great experiment.
Yes.
And that's to have everyone as an immigrant be treated as a first-class citizen.
Yes.
I mean, even the indigenous, our first Americans, came from the Upper Mongolia area and infiltrated the area, and they were the first.
Yeah.
But then came all the other groups, and the question is, can we live up to our national motto?
Yeah.
E pluribus unum,
Yeah.
out of many one. Can we really do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think we can?
I think we can, as long as we have open dialogue
Yeah.
and let young people learn to critically think. Because I think in the heart,
Oh, what a good statement.
I really do
that
mean
really
that.
is
Yeah.
a good statement.
I
The
really
critical
do.
thinking
Yeah,
part is
yeah.
so good because
really mean that.
because it needs to move from the emotional
Yep.
to the critical thinking.
that's right. That's right.
and take some positive action.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know.
Because I think.
and I
think
get
so.
the protesting, and
Yeah.
I get the sign waving,
Yeah.
and all that. That has never done anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, I've never done any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think being involved in your community,
Yes.
providing leadership,
Yeah.
mentoring young people, like
Yes.
through Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and
Yes.
and things like that, helping our K through 12 and university systems and all that.
Yep.
That's where I feel comfortable, and I think we all have to find our place.
Yeah.
But tearing down like things went in Spokane, what, a week ago Sunday, I
I
guess.
know.
That was
Yeah.
that fringe group that
Yep.
sits out on either end.
That's right.
Okay, we
That's
have
right.
them. I had Ozzy in yesterday on
Hmm.
his program, and he talked about it's not the bulk of people in either party
Mm-hmm.
or position. It's that fringe 4 or 5% out there on both sides,
sides,
that are
yep.
wrong.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and
Yep.
you and I can probably name
Yep.
several
That's
people.
right.
Okay,
That's right. Yeah.
But the rest of us, I think, by the turnout for the protesting
Mm-hmm.
of this community, that was who we are.
That was impressive.
Absolutely.
That
I didn't
really
think
was.
we'd have those
Yeah.
kinds of
Right,
numbers and
right.
so forth.
Exactly.
And who
Yeah.
was more concerned this last Sunday about what might happen? The protesters
Yep.
wanted to sunset everything at a particular point
Yep.
because they knew if they went too long, it would be the others that would
That's right.
infiltrate and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, come and hijack.
Good word.
protest.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
yes,
what- that's what
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, okay. So you've gone through all of this.
Yeah.
What got you from family to where you are now?
Well, a long story, but part of it was basketball.
Ah,
You know,
okay.
growing up in the inner city, the typical view for people of African descent is sports will get me out.
Yes.
At least to another level of something. And so I was driven by the Bay Area sports scene, obviously,
yes.
with the Warriors and the Raiders and the 49ers. I mean, there's
Yeah,
so
I
much
hear
going on.
about those
Yeah, you heard of
49ers,
those guys?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
kind of a dynasty kind of thing. And then you've got the A's and the Giants. And
Yeah.
when I was in high school, the A's won 3 World Series in a row. I mean, so sports
Well,
was
let's go
really-
back to high school, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Those were the good days. Exactly. So I was driven by basketball, and
Yeah.
I was also driven by not only sports, but would that give me a forum to pursue social justice?
Okay,
You know,
okay.
and that was my thought. And so I played basketball and became an All-American in high school.
Ooh,
and then
good.
I came up here because a little school called Gonzaga University
Yes.
wanted me to be a point guard. And I took that and I thought, okay, I'll double major, English and criminal justice, go to law school, try out for the Warriors because the coach said I can come back and try, and then eventually with my law degree, become a candidate for president. I thought I'd just run for president.
Oh, sure.
And try and, bring social justice to the White House.
I've got 2 in my family. Perhaps you've heard of the John Adams and John Quincy Adams.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. That's in your bloodline,
Yeah,
huh?
yes, it is.
Wow.
Yes,
that's
it is.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my thought was, if we tried black militancy, we tried nonviolence, why not try the White House?
Yeah.
We've tried protest. So I was driven very much by that. And that's what made education so rich to me.
Yes.
Because now I'm going to have critical thinking, kind of an interchange with professors and students to understand how can we make it? How can we get there?
I'm going to ask kind of a stereotypical question.
Sure.
You're in Oakland. You're in a black community primarily,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Sports, I get that. But what was the driving force from that to Gonzaga to get an education?
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're missing that
Yeah.
with a lot of young people
Yeah, we
today.
are, we are.
And I'm not just saying African Americans. I'm
sure.
saying a lot of people.
Sure,
Whether
sure.
it be trade school
Yeah.
or
Or what-
four-year
yeah.
degree or a law degree or whatever. Do you have a law
Sure.
degree?
No, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
almost went
Oh,
for
so
it.
you're a good guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm a good guy. I had an option, but I turned it down. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So what happened was during the 1960s, there were visionaries.
Yes.
And they could articulate what we felt in our hearts.
Okay.
You know, that really, can we have...
And I want to be one
and
of them.
I want to be one of them. I want to be a change agent.
Yeah.
And bring in a way for the generation behind us to have more racial equality than what we see now.
Okay, so it's easy for people to say, well, yes, he teaches young people, certainly early 20s, late teens. They're young to me and to a lot of folks. And I watched you in action. Was of course, I've said this, I'm very impressed.
Thank you. Yeah.
But how do you teach what's going on, especially with the history? Because I think that history is important to know where they came from and others and what was going on and so forth. How do you take that and move it from just the educational experience to the real world as we keep talking?
Very good question.
Yeah.
You know, the first thing you have to do is break the ice and break that fear of a professor.
Okay, you're not like me and tell bad jokes.
There you go. No, I try though sometimes, and it works though. You know, because I tell them if you laugh, you get extra credit. So sometimes it works out. But the thought is, what kind of atmosphere do you create?
Yes.
Students, if they feel they're at peace, they're at rest, and they won't be pointed at or blamed, are more willing to come out with what they think.
Yes.
You know, the word educate is taken from the Latin word educare, which means to draw out.
Okay.
And so my thought is, what can I do to create an environment that brings in 85, 90 students from so many different walks of life?
Yes.
And primarily Caucasian, but they're here to talk and learn about African American experience. So my first thing is to tell them, don't call me doctor, don't call me professor, that's too stuffy, because I know they're afraid of me already just because of that. I tell them, call me Big Daddy.
Ah, okay.
And that kind of makes people go, did he really say that?
Yeah, yes.
And that opens
you got
up
their
a whole,
attention now.
open up the whole discussion. But my thought, and I tell them, the reason is, I'm here for you just like your father is.
Yeah.
And actually, you're my kids for the next 10 weeks, and I'm your dad.
Yeah.
And your success is my success.
Yes.
I'm not here to make you squirm for a grade, but I want to draw out of you what you think. And let's see if we can articulate it. Let's see if we can define it. Let's see if we can investigate it. Let's see if we can critically think about the conclusions you walk around with. And so I think that's part of just making that, you know, wall go down between students and professors. And I tell them, you all bring something to the table, and I believe.
And you'll learn something from them.
And I'll actually will. I'm expecting to walk out of this quarter with something new. So that opens up a kind of a round table feeling.
Yes.
That I'm not going to give this one, you know, I got the market.
They're going to listen to an hour lecture.
Yeah, one way, and I got the corner of the market. So as a result, it brings about a kind of a direction in class, but like you saw, I take that Socratic approach. Ask a lot of questions, and then when they come to me with what is the answer, deflect it to other students, and let the whole thought of a collective critical thinking take place.
And I watched that in success.
Thank you.
And I think that's important.
Thank you, yeah.
Rather than just to be lectured to, because I don't care who it is. We kind of tune that out after
That's
a while.
right. We sure do.
It could be 2 minutes or 22
That's
minutes.
really true.
Okay.
That's
I mean,
right.
right?
That's right.
I don't need to be lectured to.
That's right.
But involve me. I'm going to learn.
Yeah, they're drawn to it. And then to see that African American history is a case study about human nature.
Yes.
Don't make it so narrow that we're just talking about one group of people and their ethnicity and their struggles and their unbelievable resilience in spite of discrimination and so on. But let's look at it, at those things in truth and in reality, but see it as a larger picture. What does this tell you about ourselves? What does this tell us about human nature? And what is it about current events that have this umbilical cord from back in the past that we can trace and see, oh, this is why this is going on here. So what I'm really trying to do is make every student a social scientist. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I just have a lot of fun. I'd rather not be doing anything else anywhere else in the world than what I'm doing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like getting paid to do my hobby.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
My gosh. Well, that showed, as I mentioned. All right. We had, 2 weeks ago now, an incident in back east.
Yeah.
And it's caused a lot of things in our community and in our country, a lot of awareness. One of the things that Ozzy said yesterday is that if you really listen to the video, you'll hear the other 3 officers tell the one officer to get off.
Wow.
But he didn't, okay?
Wow.
and things like that. I mean, those kinds of things aren't really being reported. But he made the point, and I've heard it from several in law enforcement. There's nobody more upset, Kent, than the rest of us as policemen and deputies.
That's great.
That represents us, and that's not who we are. Do we have
great.
bad people?
Right.
My gosh, we all do.
Who doesn't?
You can probably
Who
identify
doesn't?
some professors out at Eastern
Exactly.
or Gonzaga
That's
or
right.
somewhere else,
That's
okay?
right. Yeah.
I can in this profession. We
Yeah.
all can, okay?
Yeah.
Again, that's the fringe.
Mm-hmm.
And Ozzy, of course, he's rid of about 80 deputies
Wow.
in his 14 years that did not live up to the standards.
Good for him. He's quite a man.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really
Isn't
appreciate him.
he?
Oh,
He
yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
One of his heroes is Martin Luther King. I didn't know if you even knew
I didn't
that.
know
Yes,
that.
he's got 3, and I don't remember who the other 2 are,
Wow.
to be honest with you.
Huh.
But, okay, so what all that's going on, I'm going to guess that this question kind of comes up every so often. What are you telling people when they ask you what's going on? Because you have kind of a unique perspective,
Sure.
and you have the history
Yeah.
that not a lot of us have.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, appreciate
so
that.
bring us into focus a
Sure.
little bit of how you see things on a national level and what happened there and what's happening in our communities.
Yeah, this is something. I would say, first of all, that the issue of race in this country has been an undercurrent kind of,
Oh, yes.
how would you say, momentum. And now things like this bring it to surface
Yes.
to where we have to look at it face to face,
Yes.
And I believe most people, any decent person, regardless of their ethnicity or race, they are astounded that this kind of thing could happen
Yes.
in the 21st century. And yet, many African Americans will tell you this is a pattern, this is a generational thing that finally is being brought to surface.
Yeah.
So there's this, I've been waiting, and there's this kind of racial battle fatigue going on within the African American, context and mindset. But the thought is still, can we go on progressively and positively if we are willing to face up to things?
Yes.
And this is what I believe, and I've been asked even by Politico yesterday. I told them, Politico.com asked me, I said, really, the African American struggle has been one of race-related inferiority and
Yes.
race-related discrimination. And Dr. King and Malcolm X stood for 2 sides of the same coin.
Okay.
And those are collective rights and individual dignity. And in a sense, clearly, Dr. King brought in the view of collective rights, and all Americans bought into that. And that was something African Americans did not have
Yes.
until the 60s, you know.
Right.
Of course, with Emmett Till and what opened up there. Now, that brought the side of collective rights. Malcolm X also was on the side of individual dignity. He said you have to know who you are first before you can shake someone else's hand and
okay.
be in harmony. He believed in harmony, but he believed in self-definition first.
Okay.
And that's a big thing. And so what we're seeing today, because he was cut, February 21st, 1965 by the assassin's bullets, he was cut short at the age of 39,
Wow.
of course. So was Dr. King in 68 at the age of 39. If only those two could have
Yes.
lived to 89,
Yes.
which would have been almost what they would be today. So he was cut off, and in a sense, the individual dignity issue got planted into African Americans, and there was a strengthening of black awareness, black culture, black literature, black thought,
Right.
black philosophy. And yet, at the same time, there was a waning as the Vietnam War, as Watergate
Yes.
came along, as materialism came along, and the me generation of the 70s. And in a sense, that idea of sweeping changes was lost. That was there in the 60s.
Yes.
Now, what happened, I think, with the murder of our brother George Floyd was this. Young people of all races, of all ethnicities, had something put in their face. What about individual dignity?
Yeah.
It wasn't about collective rights,
Okay.
but it was this idea of how can a man be subjected to that kind of treatment? I'm going to rise up, and even though
And so obvious.
it's so
You know what I
obvious.
mean?
Extremely.
Yeah.
And then I saw last Sunday a number of Spokane residents of European nature, European background, shouting Black Lives Matter, in the sense saying that they require and should have individual dignity.
Yes.
And I think young people especially with the social media thing that's gone on now, that you and I are on the other side of the digital gap, we can see it has stirred up countries,
Yes.
let alone just the United States, about individual dignity. So I think what they're doing is saying, how can one individual be so mistreated, and they wouldn't be arrested until 3 or 4 days later,
Right.
and they wouldn't even be charged.
Which wouldn't happen if it was a black person.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
you don't even have to say that
Exactly.
out loud.
Yeah, I'm not. I
Okay.
didn't even bring that up because and that's what would make people feel like, okay, I got to stand up. And so it wasn't a matter of collective rights, but I think all Americans agree we have the collective rights somewhat, but clearly individual dignity must be maintained.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's been stirring up, and it's a beautiful thing to see. It's a issue of race, and it's also an issue of individual dignity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my background is I grew up in a white community in Southern California. We had people who came to clean the house from the black community. Okay, bust down. I can't think of her name today, but she made the best fried chicken, and she did for my birthday
I
one
believe
time.
it.
Okay. We drove up to do it.
Wow. Wow.
There was, toward my high school years, one black family in the very edge of our community, and everybody knew where they lived. That is my background.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And so, in fact, my wife will be asking me questions, and I said, because we didn't experience it. When I eventually went into YMCA work, and one of the first things I did when I was on the other side of the city out by Santa Monica is we had an opportunity to bring in a couple of counselors for our day camp and things like that from the inner city. And I said, I need to educate myself. I don't know anyone. I literally did not know anyone except the maids that came. Okay. And did I love my community? Absolutely. The irony today is it's about 70% Asian because of the school system.
Yep. Demographics.
Okay,
Okay. Yep.
San Marino, California.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
I do. Yeah.
And a good education system. You were expected and automatically took college credit classes and so forth. But I knew there were different things out there, and what I really knew was that summer when I was taking back a bus or something in 1965 down in Watts.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
that
where it all
was
started.
That's my introduction.
Okay.
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 And I'm willing to tell people I came from that. Okay.
Wow.
And so I have made myself educate myself. Am I perfect? No. I honestly, do I see the blackness in you? Of course I do. You see the whiteness in me, okay? But I see so much more.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. Yep.
I see the
Thank you.
quality of the person.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
And the interest. And I really work on that, but I have to work at it. Okay? And I'm thinking there are a lot of other people out there that may need to do that.
That's exactly
So
right.
how can we, tell me as a
Sure.
white old 74-year-old, okay, what can I do and what can others do in the community to, you hear things, defund the police, we hear things, let's form this committee, let's form that.
Yeah.
I'm one who's always said, let me get involved somewhere in a project, something, to do something. That's kind of the one-on-one thing.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. What can we do, though?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'd love to address that. You know, that defund the police, I think what that statement is saying is let's get your attention enough to come to the table and consider demilitarizing the police.
Yeah. No.
You know, rather than we don't want police.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah. But don't arm them with tanks and
well, for instance, Ozzy yesterday, one of the things Ozzy said is when we've had mental health people in the car with our deputies and so forth, there's a whole world of difference that they can help deal with some of these drug issues and other kinds of things. So those might be some of the steps. Rather than take away everything, let's add to. Rather than just throw money. I get worried personally about just throwing money at another social service project. Okay,
I agree.
Because you're old enough, and I know I am, to have seen it wasted. Okay.
Yep. Goes into a black hole, and you never know what came out.
But someone's working, and I get that.
Yeah.
But okay, so what practically can
Good.
I do?
Appreciate it. Sure. Here's what I think. We can engage in conversation We can engage in open forum. We can engage in town hall discussions over, I'll kind of give you what I've kind of brought up, I would say, after all my years since 1992 of teaching publicly at Eastern Washington University, which has been a great place to afford me freedom, academic freedom, and interaction, and at the same time a support level. I can't say enough about Eastern Washington University.
That's nice.
Beautiful setting there. But here's what I think. If we could sit down and talk, what are the sources, what are the pillars of prejudice and discrimination? Because we know those two things are a human heart disease. Not only one type of person has it, it's not only a certain region, it's a human condition. So I've kind of engaged my classes, and every time I can have an open forum, I'd like to talk about at least 5 key sources of where this thing comes from. That's in every human being. Of course, in this country, because of the numerical majority of European Americans, we see it from one side toward the other. But that doesn't mean it's not within every one of us, because it's a human thing. Now, here's what I found out. Why are we prejudiced? Why do we tend to be prejudiced? And why do we sometimes don't even put on the brakes and carry out this inward attitude of prejudging and escalate it to discrimination, outward action, is because of 5 things. Fear, ignorance, myopia, cultural nearsightedness, insecurity, and selfishness. And I believe those 5 tell us a lot about what's going on in our heart. And I believe there are 5 antidotes to each one of those. First of all, fear. Just because someone's different, we have this fear that I'm going to lose something if I get in the elevator with that person, the way they look or dress or their hair texture.
Or they're walking up to the car.
Exactly. Whatever that may be, you know. That fear element is in us. Now, the best antidote to that.
And it's in you, too.
And it's in me, too. Oh,
Yeah.
I had a fear. Listen to this. I had a fear when I came to Gonzaga. I feared people from Montana.
Oh, okay.
I thought they were just like...
Or North Idaho.
Or North Idaho. As I got to find out later. But you know what? That fear, because of how they dressed and how they talked or whatever else, the antidote is exposure. The more exposure I had while at Gonzaga, I found out my most trustworthy friends are now from Montana. And the most beautiful people, you know. But see, my first thought was, they're too different from me, and I have a fear. But exposure did a great thing. Now, when it comes to ignorance, of course, the best thing we can counteract that with is education. Formal and informal. Whether it's watching a film on the lynching of Emmett Till and the impact of what, as a sacrificial lamb, what that did to the nonviolent movement, or what is it with the George Floyd murder? What kind of documentary could we see that leads up to the situation that produced that sort of thing? Education goes so far. Eyes on the Prize is a series of civil rights documentaries that I suggest and I show to every class. That is one of the best ways to see the true eyewitness of what happened. Just Eyes on the Prize. If anyone could ever watch that, it's invaluable. So education counteracts this idea of ignorance. Now, what counteracts myopia? The cultural myopia, where we think it's okay to use certain terms or it's okay to say certain jokes because it's in our family, it's among our friends. And we have this comfort zone. I would say the best thing is actually what I call immersion. If you could put yourself in another country or in another part of this country where they don't talk like you, they don't eat like you, they don't look like you, or even go to a Native American, indigenous folks powwow and sit and get the feeling of what the first Americans really went through and what they do to celebrate their beauty and how they express their collectivity and how they have a kind of an aspiration that uplifts humanity. Just to be in that kind of setting will definitely take you beyond your nearsightedness of your cultural safety and comfort zone. And then when it comes to, my goodness, insecurity, you know, which is why people join gangs and why people join militia groups, whatever it may be, insecurity, I think, can only be answered by a sense of dignity. A sense of God-given dignity, inherent at birth congenital worth. The word dignus.
I was going to say, that we're worth something.
We're worth something, The word dignus in Latin is just worth, and we translate that to dignity. So if we have a sense of our own worth, not based on peer pressure, not based on so-called acceptance, it's that the value innately that I have makes me something of worth. That can counteract the insecurity. Then lastly, selfishness. That's the hardest one.
Yeah.
Selfishness catches us all.
Yes.
Why do we tend to see others go down happily? Because that leaves me up.
Yes.
You know, that kind of thing. And selfishness can only be counteracted by sacrifice.
Okay.
And sacrifice requires vision, requires some type of sight that takes you beyond the palm of your hand,
Yeah.
being willing to walk through even a wall of fire,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. And when I say sacrifice, Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X, Dr. King, they surely sacrifice.
Yeah.
What I mean is, are we willing to sacrifice our face and say something when we hear a racial joke or a racial slur?
Yes.
Or when we hear some type of statement about a female? Are we willing to, I would say, break that chain of
Yeah.
behind the door,
Yeah.
under the
Where
rug?
we think we're safe.
Yeah, where we think we're
Yeah.
safe and someone is saying something. Are we willing to ruffle a little feathers, rock the boat a bit, even politely? It may be someone older than you, and we should be respectful
Yeah.
towards people older than us. Or it may be our parents, and we should definitely be respectful. But are we willing to rock the boat and say, I don't agree with that, and don't say that around me, or else I'm not available to hear such things? That we have to sacrifice our face.
Yes.
You know, and I believe those antidotes can actually answer those 5 sources of prejudice and discrimination.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've got to ask you a question before we kind of
Sure.
finish up here.
Sure.
Will you come back often?
Yes, I would love
Because-
to.
Because
I would love to.
I know our viewers are going to love this. Matter of fact, in
Great.
the last week or two, I was
Huh.
just telling our tech guy, Vinny, that the one we did with you out at Eastern
Yeah.
has been pulled up and seen in the last week or 10 days.
Oh, I'm happy
And
to
I'm
hear
going,
that.
all right, wait till
Oh.
they see the new one.
I'm
you know?
happy to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And it had something like 5,000 views,
Oh, that's
which
wonderful.
is like being number 2 TV station in town.
That's
In
wonderful.
fact, Lance has to buy me breakfast.
Oh, look at that.
Because he said if it gets to 5,000,
You broke the threshold.
Yes, I did. Yeah, give him a bad
Oh,
time
thanks
next
for
time
that
you
good
talk.
news. I appreciate that feedback.
Your attitude, your presence, your education, I envy.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
I want to learn more, okay?
Mm-hmm.
In that interest, now in my senior years,
Mm-hmm.
Of learning more. And I think there are a lot of others out there. And as you know my background from San Marino and so forth, it's been a trail to get to where I am now.
Wow. Wow.
Okay? And so selfishly, I want you back. Okay?
Please, let me come
Okay?
back. I'd love to.
And
I'd love to.
I think one of these times, let's bring in some more chairs.
Sure.
And let's do a little forum where community members can ask you questions.
questions,
too.
you bet.
The
You
other
bet.
thing is, so help me, when you get back in the classroom, let's hope later in 2020 or in
You bet.
2021,
You bet.
I want your class schedule so I can
Okay.
come out.
That's a deal,
Do I have
sir.
permission to
That's-
do that?
That's a deal. You
Okay.
bet. You bet. And
Absolutely.
I also want to say this. You inspire me.
Oh,
because here you are in your 70s, and you're still saying, I want to be a student.
Yeah.
And that's my thought is, may I, when I reach my 70s, may I be just like you. I want to learn. I
Yeah.
want to take in. I still want to say, I don't know enough. I surely don't know it all.
Yeah.
Teach me. Let's
Yeah.
be educated.
Yeah.
And let's turn the mess that we've inherited. No one's responsible for this. We've inherited it.
Yeah.
But let's make it better for the generation behind us. I think we can.
Any parting words?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I think young people should be applauded for stepping up, for rising up, and to step across all barriers to show that there is something deep within the human psyche that wants individual dignity and freedom for everyone, regardless of their outward makeup or their lifestyle
Yeah.
or whatever it may be.
Right.
So I think let's applaud the young people. They give us hope, and I think we need to keep pouring into them what we can and
Absolutely.
receiving what we can learn from them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you for today.
You bet.
Thank you for what you
Thank
do
you.
out there.
Thank you.
Thank you for the one we did a couple
Yeah,
of
that
months
was a
ago.
lot of fun.
And
You
all
bet.
of that.
You bet.
I'm going to hope that this gets twice the numbers.
Great.
And I think it will.
Great.
Just because of all that's going on right
Sure,
now.
sure.
Am I allowed to shake
You
your
bet.
hands
Let's
in
do
this
it. Let's
COVID
do it. I
thing?
think we're okay. We're
All right.
okay.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
sir.
Scott, for
Thank
doing
you.
this.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank
and
you.
thank you for watching. I hope you'll watch this. I hope you'll share this on Facebook and other media with some of your friends. And we'll have Scott back next time on Experts at EWU.